Good morning, everybody. Hey, Tess and Lucy, Melina, Tim. And we had somebody in here who I had to block who was um, proselytizing. So that's always fun. Okay. Do you have any questions for me this morning? Or what questions do you have? Or what would you like to learn more about? Or what would you like to learn about in general regarding Buddhist teachings, of course? Nothing? Okay. That is fine because I have something I want to talk about. So as I get my water. Oh, I'm so grateful for water. Isn't it wonderful? We can just have water, clean, potable water, right in our own homes. Okay, so we're going to begin by just settling in, first of all, just getting your mind into the body, into the present moment. Take a few breaths. Kunsanda Sangarab Shiri Sempema Karajabani Shuna. Susun Natatenga Saso Katanamanam no so wate. Omin Chiki and Kipojane, Dusum Sangi, Quinking, Wawone, and some sugar and Sunta. So anime Shabla so wate. Okay. Mm. So we want to start with our bodhicitta motivation. So bodhicitta is a Sanskrit word. Bodhi means awakened or enlightened. Chitta means the mind and heart together. And the definition of this word is the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all mother sentient beings. So, what does that mean exactly? Well, by studying and contemplating and meditating over time with realized teachers, we can attain enlightenment, which means that we are free from suffering, that we're free from the round of birth and death, and that we can uh, help others to reach the same state. If that seems something a little too far out for you, that's totally fine. But at least if we could make the wish that the time we spent together this morning benefits not only ourselves, but others as well. So please take a moment to do that. All right, so Melina says she sent a question by email. I checked the email just before I started, so 10:29, Melina. Come on, my good. Okay, I saw that question before, and yeah, I can't. I'm not prepared for that, but thank you. Okay, okay. So today we're just going to talk about this question, which is how do we cultivate genuine well-being and a positive mind in a world that is falling apart? So I think this question is very timely given our current world situation. So let's talk about that. Um, there are practical steps, and there are, like, I should say, mundane steps and spiritual steps that we can take towards having a positive mind, you know, genuine well-being, being peaceful, and so forth. Okay. So, in brief, it would be more practice, less media, more trust in the teachers and in the Dharma, less useless doubt. So, first, let's look at more practice, less media. Okay. Most of us, or many of us, I'll say, waste a lot of time on our phones and on our computers. So, of course, we need to use them. They're useful tools. But when we are, or or watching TV, let's say too, um, there's nothing wrong with these things. Nothing wrong with playing games on your phone or Nintendo and all that stuff. There's nothing wrong with watching movies. There's nothing wrong with scrolling social media. There's nothing wrong with those things inherently. The issue is when we overdo it. The issue is when we spend hours and hours, doing these things, which are ultimately useless. You know, if we want to relax, and for us, relaxing is playing a video game, then by all means, take some time to do that, but not 4 hours a day. We could be practicing 4 hours a day, or 2 hours a day, or 1 hour a day, whatever, right? Time, the time that we have is extraordinarily limited. Yeah. Life goes by very, very fast. And it's, we have something called precious human life, which has, a lot of specific points. But in brief, what that means is uh, a life that allows us to encounter the Dharma and actually practice and progress on the path. It's really hard to get that. So the fact that we have that now is extraordinarily precious and important. And if we squander that by wasting time on social media, on our phones, on games, on TV, it's such a pity, it's such a shame and such a huge waste, you know. I often talk about like comparing precious human life to winning the lottery, you know. And if we won the lottery, like if you had like wasting your precious human life, it's like not cashing in your lottery ticket, you know, like you buy the ticket, you watch TV or newspaper or however people get those numbers, you find you have all the matching numbers, but you're not going to go and cash in the ticket because you'd rather play a video game. Doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make any sense. Or you want to watch TV, or it's raining, or it's too cold, or it's too hot, or you're tired, all these things would mean nothing if we won the lottery. We would not waste time, you know, going to cash in that ticket. But we do that with our precious human life. We have a precious human life. It's more rare. It's more rare than winning the lottery to have a precious human life, to have a life with all of the components that allow us to attain enlightenment in one life. Yeah. Um, so for us not to use that to the best of our ability is like throwing away our lottery ticket. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that, again, like I said before, that we're not allowed to entertain ourselves. And we also have to understand that, we have work, we have stress, we have, responsibilities, we have physical illness, mental illness. Like there's a lot of things that can keep us from practicing that we may or may not have control over, right? But the key is we're doing the best we can, right? And we need to be honest about that. Like, is this really my best? Or am I making excuses, yeah, to not practice? So, you know, um, we could be using this time that we're wasting on other things. that are not work or responsibilities and so forth, right? Um, Time that could be better spent practicing, creating community, caring for ourselves and caring for others. All of that is useful. So cutting down on this time wasting. I mean, the other thing about that, and I'm sure this is not news to any of you, um, when we look at social media, if you take uh, Instagram, for example, or TikTok, um, it's very fast. Yeah, it's very fast. Things come at you, at you, at you, at you, at you, at you, like that. And your mind and body actually get very stressed, you know, depending on what you have. Like, I just recently deleted Instagram from my phone because I was wasting so much time on it. Um, and I deleted the games that I had also because that was just wasting time. It was crazy. So, but when I had Instagram, I tried to make it mostly nice, like dog videos and funny things. But I did keep some political commentators, and then you get these suggestions for things. So even when I tried to really soften my feed, I was still getting like hit in the face, with um, anger and fighting and war and disagreements. And I don't know, just thinking about it stresses me out. And it's not that we should, um, hide away and not know about the world, but we don't need to know about the world every second of the day. Yeah. We don't need to have people yelling in our face or asking us to buy something. I don't know how long those videos last, like a minute, every minute or every 2 minutes, because that's kind of what Instagram has become too. You see, for every, 3 videos, there's an ad. And it's also so fast that, of course, there's the attention span thing, which does not help our practice. And there's also like I don't know, like your emotions and your thoughts are just being pulled this way and that way and this way and that way, and that in itself is tiring and stressful, and it's not helpful. How is that helping you? You know, how is that benefiting you in any way? Whereas the practice is so incredibly helpful, so amazingly beneficial, not just for ourselves, but for others. So between those two things, really, it's better to practice, Um, so, cutting down on these things and increasing the time that you practice will go a long way to bringing you peace of mind. Um, and we have to understand too that in the case of social media, um, the media wants to fearmonger, right? And even like individual creators are gonna want to stress you. If you look on YouTube, for example, or on any of these, um, people learned, that shock value or, um, you know, scaring people uh, gets more clicks, right? So we're being manipulated by the media, by the sort of corporate media, but also by individual creators to be afraid. Like, we have enough fear. There's enough fear in life. Why are we giving ourselves more, right? And they use, like corporate media in particular, uses this to control us, and the government uses this to control us. And so we need to be very aware of that and very careful about that. Yes, like, we're going through a lot. The world is going through a lot right now. And it seems to be kind of getting worse, right? Second by second, it seems to be getting worse. Um, and that may be true. I'm not actually denying that, but it's more an issue of We need to kind of widen our perspective and understand that this is a moment in time. And the world has been experiencing upheaval since the dawn of humanity, really. You know, we have a feeling that like this is new. It's not new. You know, even if you just look at American history, like, well, even the Native Americans here were fighting each other over, I don't know what, but they were fighting each other, right? And then Westerners came, and then there was genocide, and then there was slavery, and then there was war after war after war after war, and Civil War, and Vietnam War, and World War One, and World War Two. It's not new. It's not new. I'm not saying it's not new, like we don't need to think about it, we don't need to care about it. I don't mean it that way. I mean, we don't need to panic necessarily, you know? We don't need to make it bigger than it is. We should definitely know about it. So it is important to be informed in general so that we know what's happening, so that we know how to vote, so that if we can take action, we can take action, and so forth. But we don't need to know about it every second of the day, is what I was saying earlier. When I was growing up, there was like the evening news, and that was it, and newspapers, slow newspapers in the morning, evening news in the evening, and that was it, you know, and that's enough. When I was in a 3-year retreat, we were instructed not to have any media. We did not even have a radio. No newspapers, no computers, no television, no radio, for 3 years. And some things leaked in for sure. People's families wrote them or whatever. Like my first retreat was the Iraq War, I think. And my second retreat was 9/11. So, of course, that's going to get to us, right? But in general, the fact that everyone in retreat were media free didn't really change anything, right? The world didn't, the sky didn't fall because I didn't get the news for 3 years. So if we can go if we can go 3 years without the news, we can go one day or 2 days without the news, you know? Maybe think about doing something like that, taking the weekend to be media free, you know, except maybe a podcast or something, but not, let's say, news free. Taking the weekend to be news free. So give your mind and your heart a break, I think that, of course, we need to um, understand suffering, be aware of suffering. As Buddhists, this is extremely important because this is what fuels our practice to a large degree, right? Is bodhicitta. And bodhicitta begins with um, compassion, seeing the suffering of others and wanting them to be free of that suffering, right? It's it's very important. It's very important to know what happens in the world, to see things, clearly, right? So the second point, more trust in the teachers and in the Dharma, less doubt. So we hear the teachings, right, in books or in situations like this, or classes, or from the lamas, sometimes for decades, and yet somehow we refuse to believe them. You know, we I don't know why I would do this, but there can be this tendency to hear the teachings and just sort of keep them on the surface and not really try to integrate them and not take them seriously. Um, we sort of sit there nodding, and then they don't affect our life. Like if that's what we're doing and it's not affecting our life, then we need to re-examine. what we're doing, right? Um, like, man, you know, we adore our teachers, our lamas, right? But we don't listen to them. When they tell us samsara or cyclic existence is suffering, why don't we believe them? I don't know. Why don't we believe them? Like we believe them intellectually, but somehow it doesn't translate into our lives? Why do we continue to insist that suffering is not the norm when it is? So what do I mean by that? So we have, yeah, and this is actually the first noble truth, the truth of suffering. We have this tendency to we have like a really strong belief that life should be problem free, that life should contain zero inconvenience, zero inconvenience, zero pain, zero suffering. And you might say, no, I don't believe that. But if you look, yeah, you probably do. Why do I say that? Because we're surprised. We're surprised by suffering. We're 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 like suffering seems like an anomaly, you know. Oh, my back hurts. Why did my back hurt? You know, or oh, the weather's not what I want it to be today, or oh, my relationship broke up, or oh, so and so died. You know, this is samsara, man. This is how it works. You know, this is how it works. And it's not so that we could be, pessimistic, right? But it's so that we can see how things actually are. And paradoxically, if we see how things actually are, we suffer less because we don't have an unrealistic expectation of life, of reality. We're just like, yeah, of course. Of course my phone broke, you know? It's impermanent, you know? Of course I'm gonna get sick. This is part of cyclic existence. Of course my feet hurt or my back hurts or my head hurts. I'm in a human body. And it doesn't mean that oh, well, then I won't try to do anything about it. Of course, there's nothing wrong with, trying to make our bodies healthier, trying to make ourselves happier and more comfortable. There's nothing wrong with that at all. The issue is our perspective. Yeah. The issue is somewhere we believe that we should have no pain, that we should never suffer, that we should never even be inconvenienced. And we suffer because we suffer because we get sick. There's like this normal suffering, but then we suffer more. That's what I mean. Like we can reduce the suffering by understanding the nature of cyclic existence. Yeah. So we like suffer more because we feel it shouldn't be that way, right? So right now, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio, and it's rainy at the moment. Okay. If I said to you, oh, I'm so pissed off, because it's not snowing, and like I really wanted to go skiing today, and like, why isn't it snowing? I need it to snow. I want to go skiing. Like you would think I was insane. That would be crazy. But that's what we do all the time, actually, in our life. Expecting relationships to be permanent, expecting people to be permanent, expecting to never be inconvenienced. All that is completely unreasonable, but we fail to see it. Okay. Um, when the teachers talk about karma, law of cause and effects, why do we continue to act in unskillful ways? I'm feeling that this is sounding a bit like a fire and brimstone, and I apologize for that. I don't like that kind of teaching that's like, you're doing it wrong. But I'm just trying to wake us up a little bit. and kind of prove my initial point, which is that we don't trust the teachers and we don't trust in the Dharma and we doubt everything. So, another way of putting that is we need to integrate the teachings. We need to pay attention and like try to form our life to the teachings. Yeah. Rather than just leaving it on the surface. So, we can say, oh, karma really makes sense. Law of cause and effect absolutely makes sense. So karma is actually an extraordinarily complicated subject. The more you look into it, the more you see the infinite layers of it. But in general, the idea is that virtuous or skillful acts of body, speech, and mind result in happiness, and unvirtuous or unskillful acts of body, speech, and mind result in suffering. That's like the broadest kind of stroke that you can put to the law of cause and effect. So we learn this through the text from the teachers, etc. And then, oops, sorry. I don't know what that's about. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Um, Probably you didn't even hear that, but one of my alarms went off. Um, Hang on one second. I gotta turn this off. Okay, just silence my phone. All right. Um, where was I? Uh, right, law of cause and effect. So, um, yes, it makes sense, especially when the teachers explain it. You really see the logic of it. But then we don't change our behavior. Like I see myself doing this all the time. I understand the law of cause and effect. I totally believe in the law of cause and effect. It really makes sense. I've been at this for a long time. Yes, totally, totally, totally makes sense. But then I still, I don't know, full of frustration or anger at somebody. I'm like, Palmo, are you not learning anything? Can we work on this, please? And not just pretend to practice, pretend to understand it, pretend to believe it, but not, if I'm not putting my action, if I'm not changing my actions, then I don't really believe it. If I really believed it, then I would change my actions. I would think that it was important to change the actions of my body, speech, and mind. This is what I mean about integration, right? So when we, suffer, which is a lot to varying degrees at varying points in our life, sometimes we're suffering a great deal, sometimes less, but we can use that suffering. It's called taking it on the path. We can take that suffering on the path, right? So if we're talking about this particular type of suffering where we feel like the whole world's falling apart, you know, we can use that particular suffering to generate disgust for samsara, compassion for all beings, and an inspiration to practice. So, what I mean by disgust for samsara, so when we think about, the current administration, um, the various wars around the world, the uh, absolute, disaster of climate change, um, various natural disasters, fires, earthquakes, on and on. When we have that feeling of like, what's happening, we can use it to generate disgust for samsara. So why do we say that in that way? Because right now, samsara is cyclic existence, okay? It's round of birth and death and birth and death and birth and death. And we've all been on since beginningless time. And there's a lot to say about that. I know I did a previous video on it. You can look through our videos. But although samsara is mostly suffering, we are still very attached to it. Yeah. Shantideva says that like no one everyone wants to be happy. Sentient beings want to be happy, but they run away from its causes as though it were a hated enemy. So, what is the cause of happiness? As I said earlier, it's virtuous acts of body, speech, and mind. So, we want to be happy, but we also want to backbite. We want to be happy, but we also want to lie. We want to be happy, but we also want to, I don't know, be jealous of someone. We want to be happy, but we also want to feed our pride. Do you want to be happy or not? You know, and I'm talking to myself in this, my friends. You know, I fall into these traps all the time. That's why I can talk about it. That's why I understand it. I understand the challenge of it and the difficulties, but that doesn't mean that it's not important. I also understand the importance, right? So we have to develop disgust for samsara. We have to develop a sense of renunciation for samsara. I talked about my friend Kim Ann in France when we were in my first 3-year retreat together, and if she really likes something, like this delicious dessert or something, she would say with her French accent, "Samsara is so good sometimes," And it's true, samsara is so good sometimes. There's nothing wrong with enjoying a piece of cake. But ultimately it is suffering. And when we see things like, the world is falling apart, this administration is destroying this country, this is samsara. This is cyclic existence. This is the very thing that we're trying to liberate ourselves from and help others also. And we use that same feeling, the world is falling apart, to generate compassion for all beings. So many beings are suffering. If you want to just focus on just this administration, the amount of suffering and death that has increased because of this administration is pretty substantial. You're talking about more hungry families, more hungry children, more um, death because people can't afford insurance, you know, uh, more debt because people can't afford insurance. Now gas prices are, what is it, over $4 now. It's really hard for people to support that, right? And then you can think about the suffering of animals in all of this as well, right? All these animals raised for slaughter who are suffering every day and so forth and so on. Rather than just swimming in that and kind of just wallowing in our own suffering over that, we turn it around and develop compassion for those beings. And that compassion then spurs us to practice more because that's what's going to free us and that's what's going to help us help them is our practice. Even though it might seem disconnected, it's very connected. Even the practice we do as beginners, like we are, right? It has an effect on the world. It does. It really does. So we should think about the preciousness of that, you know, the the gift of that, the incredible privilege of that, of being able to practice for ourselves and others. So, Buddhism is never about feeling better, which, is, can be kind of disappointing. I think most people, including myself, come to Buddhism or come to meditation with a self-centered, a self-focused attitude. You know, I want to be more calm. I want to be more clear. I want to be able to relax. I want to deal with my anger, whatever it is. And it isn't until later that we're like, oh, compassion and thinking about others, thanks to the teachings, right? And that's fine. Nothing wrong with that at all. We come how we come. I don't know if anybody comes to the teachings with, I want to benefit others. Probably nobody, unless they're already a bodhisattva. So Buddhism is never about feeling better, meaning like, I was talking recently about like my spiritual progression, and n- once I left the Catholic Church, I started looking into other things, and I checked out all the New Age things that were all uh, around that were really on fire in the mid '80s, and what I saw there was just, it was so selfish, you know. All these different paths were like, if you do this, then you will get rich, or you will get a boyfriend, or you will get money, or you will get whatever, health, you will get, was no thought about others or helping others. um so when I say Buddhism is never about feeling better in that sense, that's what I mean. you know it's always about compassion and wisdom, and both of those aspects require seeing reality, not hiding from it. Buddhism is about freedom, okay? Freedom from the control our own afflictive emotions have had over us since the dawn of time. Yeah? Freedom from the opinions and judgments of others, you know? Buddhism is, really praises being independent. You need to develop your own confidence, not only in the teachings, but in yourself. Yeah? It's called Vajra pride or Vajra confidence. It means like we understand that we have this potential, and we don't need to make ourselves small or pretend that we don't have this potential. We do. We are capable. We can do it. That's Vajra pride. It's not how, pride in the negative sense of like, I'm the best, this kind of thing. And we can appreciate also, when we think about world falling apart and things like that, we can take a moment to appreciate what we have at the moment anyway, because everything's impermanent, right? And to again think about others and make the wish that they would have the same, you know. I mean, there's not bombs dropping on our homes. Our children are not being starved and having limbs blown off. We're not wondering where our next meal is coming from. In fact, many of us are trying to eat less, right? Because we're too heavy. So we can say, oh, when we notice like we want to eat more food, or we open the fridge and we see that it's full of food, we can take a moment and just be grateful, and make a wish. And may all beings who need food have food. May all beings who want to be healthy or who need to be healthy become healthy. You know, like oftentimes when I get into bed, I just take a second and I'm like, wow, I'm so lucky, that I live in this peaceful place, and I have a roof over my head, and I have this comfy bed. May all beings be able to have peace, this kind of thing. Yeah. So when I'm talking about how to handle this feeling that the world is falling apart, I'm not saying our suffering or anxiety isn't valid. Of course it is. Only that I'm only saying that, like, if we realize what we have, it's helpful. That helps calm the anxiety, to feel a sense of gratitude, and to be inspired to continue creating the good karma that put us in this particular situation when so many of the world over are suffering in unimaginable ways. Most importantly, we have this precious human life that I mentioned before. And there's literally, without exaggeration, nothing more valuable than that. We should use our observation of the world falling apart to inspire us to practice more so we can reach enlightenment more quickly and put an end to all this suffering. All right, so I've gone over my time quite considerably. Apologize for that. But let's do some meditation, okay? All righty. Okay. So we'll just do mindfulness breathing practice. So if you know the posture, just go ahead and take it and you can start your meditation. But I'm going to explain it because we never know who's watching. So if you're sitting on your bed or you're sitting on the floor, just cross your legs in whatever way is comfortable for you. If you're sitting in a chair, please make sure your feet are flat on the floor in front of you, as that will help a lot to keep your posture. All the other instructions are the same. So you can have your hands palms down on your legs or palms up right on top of left in your lap, or with your fingers touching like that and your thumbs touching like that, whichever you prefer. Back is straight. This is really the most important thing, but not tense, yeah? Straight but relaxed. Because the back of the neck is also straight, your chin's going to be tucked in a little bit. Arms relaxed. Shoulders should be back a little bit. Okay, mouth is closed but relaxed, tongue resting on the roof of the mouth. Breathing through the nose. Ideally, your eyes are open or half open, looking down in front of you. The relaxed lowered gaze. If that's too difficult, just go ahead and close your eyes. But over time, you should train to meditate with your eyes half open like this. And take a moment to notice the sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose. Just take a moment to notice that, please. Okay. So, how we do this meditation is we are trying to keep continuous, relaxed awareness of the sensation of the breath coming in and out of the nose. And we're letting the thoughts come and go. Just letting the thoughts come and go as they will, without distraction, without running after them, without making up some kind of big storyline. Just let them pass through the mind like clouds through a clear blue sky. All right. Please begin that now. When you get distracted, just bring the mind back to the breath. Okay, please begin that now. Now begin to count the breaths, counting either every in breath or every out breath for a total of 10 complete breaths. If you lose count, that's indication you got distracted. So bring the mind back to the breath, start again at 1. If you get to 10, start again at 1. Please begin that now. Okay, and the meditation now. And we will go on to say the closing prayers. I'll share with you, but you can find a lot of good links in the description box below. Um, let's see, share. Hold on a second. There we go. Okay. All right. Here we go. So on the YouTube videos, we just say these in English. In previous, we just started doing it that way. Anyway, these are long life prayers for the Dalai Lama, our teachers, and all teachers in general. We go in this direction, the two on the left, and then the two on the right. Okay. In the celestial realm encircled by snow peaks, you are the source of every happiness and benefit. Tenzin Gyatso Avalokiteshvara himself, may your lotus feet remain firm for 100 eons. Om Swasti, in the vast expanse of your fearless wisdom, shine the 100,000 cooling light rays of your all-pervading great love, dispelling the anguish of beings in this degenerate age. O supreme jewel of space, regent of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, remain with us continuously, we pray. Om Swasti, through dependent causation and the blessings of the infinity of long-life deities, may Pema Wangya, prophesied magical emanation of the Taklon Setral, be firm in body, speech, and mind like the king of the sounding drum, Amitabha, and may the great waves of his wishes for the teachings and beings spread out to their ultimate extent. We pray for the good health of the lamas. We pray for their precious lives to be long. We pray for their activities to spread and increase. May we be blessed, never depart from them. By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy of wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of cyclic existence, may I free all beings. May bodhicitta, precious and sublime, arise where it has not yet come to be, and where it has arisen, may it never fail, but grow and flourish ever more and more. As long as space endures, as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. Ever absorbed in the display of divine forms and primordial awareness, appearance, sound, and perception in the state of divinities, mantras, and dharmakaya, may I, inseparable from the practice of the profound and secret great yoga, attain within the essence of mind the state of one taste. And then we say this mantra. Om Vajra Sattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajra Sattva Tinopa Tishta Jito Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anurato Me Bhava Soa Siddhi Me Prayatsa Soa Kama Sutta Me Chitam Shriyam Guru Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Savatata Gata Vajramame Munsa Adri Bhavama Samaya Sattva. All right, so a couple of announcements for you. We have meditation every Saturday, same time, 10:30 to 11:30. On the second Saturday of the month, we are also, this month, we're also at Lakewood Public Library and on YouTube. Okay, so that would be May 9th. In June, and then we have, and then we have a spring break from the 15th of May through the 26th of May. So we will not be doing meditation on the 16th and 23rd of May. And then in June, we're going to start meditation at a place called the Centering Space in Lakewood. It's right next to Lakewood Park. We'll put that on our website, newsletter, and stuff. We just haven't gotten around to doing that yet. So that will be on Sunday mornings, not Saturdays anymore. Sundays, same time, 10:30 to 11:30, in person at the Centering Space, and always on YouTube as well. We practice Buddha sadhana together 3 times a month. The next one will be Saturday, the 16th. I will not be leading, but someone else will be leading, and that will take place at 11:30 a.m. What else can I tell you? Let's see. We're giving a new class in June as well called Women in Buddhism. Um, it's really good if you sign up for the newsletter because that is the best way to know what is happening at all times. Ba, 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 ba. If you are able to make a donation, we really need it and we appreciate it. Even $5 really goes a long way for us. So links below in order to do that. Please like, subscribe, and comment. This really helps drive traffic here. Share with friends and family. And in the future, we'll also be doing retreats and various other events. We do have a Lama coming, not one of our own teachers, but um, Kempo actually, and he will be giving us teachings on Thursday, May 28th at 6:30 p.m. Location to be determined. So far, we're at the library, but anyway, we will let you know about that in the newsletter and on our website. All right, so thank you again for joining us this morning or looking at the video later. It's so nice to have you and have a great rest of your weekend. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.